got a really good show for you, Saints fans. First off, we're going to discuss the NFL has blessed the New Orleans Saints right ahead of free agency. It's right around the corner, and we got a lot of good news. We've already gotten some this week, but I got more for you here in today's video. And then later on, we're going to discuss some cut candidates that the New Orleans Saints could potentially sign. Some surprise names, some very high-profile players. We're going to dive into who NFL Network thinks could be cut and who could join the New Orleans Saints with Kellen Moore. But really fast, we are almost at 41,500 subscribers. I just need 120 of you to help me out. Hit that sub button, lock us in for free Saints videos every single day. Now let's start things off with Dan Graziano. He was the one who informed everybody, well, you remember back in 2028, 2029, we talked about that report of how the salary cap is going to explode? Well, now, Dan Graziano has reported that the salary cap for 2025 is going to fall in between $277.5 to $281.5 million, which is a massive, massive spike, over $53 million increase over the last 2 seasons. And here's how things have shaken out every single year. So obviously in 2021, the numbers were down because there was a large thing that shut down the entire world. People had to wear masks. That's why the numbers were down. But then you get back to a little bit of normalcy, and you see the salary cap increase every single year. Big increase from 2023 to 2024. But in 2025, we're projected to see almost a 10% increase again. So what does this mean for the New Orleans Saints? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, we got some good news. The Saints, they are still over the cap. That part is true. That being said, it increases this cap space. They were originally about $54.1 million over the cap. Now they're just about $47 million over the cap. So you're a little bit closer to cap compliance, which is really, really good news. That being said, every team now has extra money to spend, so it's not like the Saints got any sort of massive favors. But that being said, this does help the Saints, who have a long road of cap compliance to figure out, to be able to spend some money. And you know, I will also add, this does make the cap easier to manage. You don't have to worry about the cuts. You don't have to worry as much about, you know, restructures and stuff. Like, it just makes it a little bit easier to manage it. And to be totally honest, you cut Derek Carr, you save $30 million. That's a lot bigger of a chunk when you're only 47 versus $54 million over the cap. So much, much easier issue to manage for Mickey Loomis and Kai Harley. Jason over the cap. He added a little bit of context. This does help a lot of teams, specifically the teams that are at the bottom of the cap table, like the Bills, the Browns, Seahawks, Falcons, and Saints. They are at the bottom of the salary cap number across the National Football League. So this will help those teams get a little bit closer, like I mentioned, to the cap compliance number. Also, it just makes life a little bit easier for all of us. Players can make more money. It's just a good situation for everybody across the board, pretty much. So keep watching football if you want the Saints to get out of cap hell. Now, coming up, I mentioned we're going to talk about some surprise cut candidates. I got right here. Boom, boom, boom. I know this one right here is going to fire you up. I don't think y'all are going to like this one, but Joey Bosa, we have an honest conversation. NFL Network, they listed cut candidates, a lot of them from the AFC and the NFC. And I decided to hone in on these 3 names really fast. I got to get you guys hooked up in your wardrobe, and I got to get your wardrobe updated, and you can get started and do just that with Public Rec. The link is in the comment section description of this video. Public Rec is the absolute best clothes. Nobody has time for stiff, uncomfortable clothing anymore. I mean, it's February, it's cold outside, and to be totally honest, fellas, you and I both deserve to be very comfortable no matter what the weather is, no matter what we're doing, no matter what we're wearing. That's where Public Rec comes in. And for a limited time, our listeners get 20% off your entire order with code CHAT20 at publicrec.com. The link is in the comments and description of this video. That's code CHAT20 at publicrec.com to get 20% off when you use our promo code. Public Rec isn't just about pants. They have so many great style options, whether you're working all day in the office, you're running some errands, just grabbing a drink with the fellas, or if you want to just grab a quick 9 at the course. Who doesn't want to look sharp without sacrificing comfort? And I'll tell you what, once you put on your Public Rec clothes, you're going to wonder why you ever wore anything else. So this February, stop settling for the same old stuff. Step up your comfort game with Public Rec. The link is in the comments and description of this video. That's code CHAT20 at publicrec.com. Make sure you use the link. That way they know we sent you, and that way you can support the show. Shout out to Public Rec for sponsoring today's video. Cannot recommend their products enough to the Who Dat Nation. First name we're going to discuss in this cut candidates section and segment of today's video. Why the hell not talk about Marshon Lockdown Daddy Lattimore, baby? Could he come back to New Orleans? Probably not. Joey, he could, but he's likely no. I mean, I will say this: the Commanders, they would save $18 million if they cut Marshon Lattimore, and worth noting here, the Commanders have a lot of money to spend. Also, Marshon Lattimore was only healthy a total of 5 games for the Washington Commanders. And when he played in the playoffs, it wasn't all that great, a 29.6 PFF coverage grade, and he allowed 10 catches for over 170 yards and a passer rating of over 136. So maybe the Commanders are like, hey, we traded for him. We wanted to go all in. We were trying to win the Super Bowl. It didn't work. We can save a little bit of money and have actually close to $100 million if we cut him. But here's what NFL Network said. While the Commanders are in superb shape, they're projected to be $75 million under the cap. I wish the Saints could have that problem. They might rather spend those millions elsewhere as they seek to build around Jaden Daniels and become a lasting powerhouse in the NFC. Now, I don't think that Washington is going to cut Marshon Lattimore. Why would they trade for him if they didn't want him to be a part of the future? I do believe Lattimore is a great football player, and I do believe that he will have some good reps and some good tape with the Washington Commanders, but I do also think they have a nice little situation of Mikey Sanders still, so we'll have to see what happens in Washington. I don't think Lattimore is on the move, but I'll tell you what, if he does get cut, it would be really cool to see him come back in New Orleans. Now let's talk about Travis Kelce. This is an honest conversation here. I don't think I'd want to bring in Travis Kelce, but you cannot deny the fact that he is still a very, very talented tight end in the National Football League. And, he is 35 years old. He's coming off of back-to-back seasons with less than 1,000 yards, so still a quality football player, but in terms of his standards, it's a little bit lower production. And, there was some effort concerns at the Super Bowl, and the podcast with his brother, the New Heights podcast, has just absolutely taken off. So maybe Travis Kelce's like, I'm ready to be done here. I don't want to do this anymore. But that being said, if the Chiefs were to cut him, $17.3 million is freed up. So that isn't something that you should absolutely turn away. When the Chiefs, they have to add some talent in order to compete for a Super Bowl again. Now, NFL Network saying that Kelce's efficiency has plummeted these last 2 years, and it might be time for Kansas City to move on. Again, this would be crazy, but Kansas City has split with legendary tight ends amidst solid seasons before. And, go back to the Tony Gonzalez days. So it happened. I'm not here to tell you that Travis Kelce is 100% going to be a free agent target, but I do think that the Saints have a need at tight end. And, while I would argue Travis Kelce would be an awesome addition, he is a high-name player, and you're telling me you wouldn't want a little bit of the Taylor Swift magic where no matter what, you're going to win close games? Yeah, I would like to have that in New Orleans. That being said, I think the better route is building through the draft. And I think that this draft class is loaded with talented tight ends. And these guys on screen aren't just the only options you have. There's a plethora of other talented players that you can get. These are just 5 names that I personally am really high on and wouldn't mind the Saints drafting at any of their picks, to be totally honest. So, I do think that tight end is a big need for the Saints. It's not the biggest, but it is a need nonetheless. You cannot leave the draft and you cannot leave free agency without adding to the tight end room. So how big of a need is tight end? Scale it for me 1 to 10. If it's a 1, not a big need whatsoever. You're fine. You're good with Foster Moreau and Dallin Holker, and that's about it. If you think it's a 10, it's pretty much the biggest need on this roster. So let me know what you guys think down below. I'm probably sitting at anywhere from 6.8 to 7.5. I think that's kind of where I'm flirting with, at least the number at least. Last name, Joey Bosa. Guys, let's have an honest conversation here. The production's down. The Chargers have, in the past, restructured his contract. Could they look to do it again? Maybe. They also could just say, you know what? $25.4 million is a lot of guap. That's a lot of guacamole right there. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind bringing in Joey Bosa. He's coming off of his 5th Pro Bowl. But he also didn't have double-digit sacks for consecutive seasons. And he hasn't had double-digit sacks since 2021, which, for the record, do you know who the head coach was of the Chargers? It was Brandon Staley. And you know who was been linked to the Saints job as a DC? Brandon Staley. It is no mystery. Some of the production's been down because he's missed a lot of time due to injuries. But, I mean, guys, if you want a player that could be a big-time boost to the pass rush, I think that Joey Bosa might be that guy. And, again, I don't really care about the finance. Remember, we just talked about it. There's a higher cap number this year than what was initially expected. So NFL Network pointing out Khalil Mack is going to be a free agent this March. Now, adding a wrinkle to this situation, and the Chargers are currently in the top 5 in cap space. So they do have money to spend. They don't need to make Bosa a cap casualty. So maybe he sticks around for a year, or maybe he's actually on the watch list. I'll tell you this. If somehow, some way, the New Orleans Saints can get Joey Bosa, that is a big-time addition to the pass rush. And it makes our pass rush unit a lot more feared, a lot more dangerous, a lot more consistent, dare I say. I mean, I get it. He wasn't on the field a lot, but you get healthy, things are fine. And, you know, Brandon Staley, he was the head coach of the Chargers, and Bosa had a couple of good years under Staley. I also know that at one point in time, things didn't end the best in the whole wide world. So, like, I just wanted to show y'all this post that kind of adds a little bit of context of actually maybe Brandon Staley and Bosa could be on good terms. Maybe they're not. It's just kind of this whole little thing. Back when the Chargers, they lost to the Jags in the playoffs, you remember a lot of drama around Staley and around Bosa. It just was a weird situation. But this does add a little bit of context. Maybe, just maybe, Brandon Staley, if he gets hired, he could recruit Bosa to come to the New Orleans Saints. It fills a position in need, and to be totally honest, I'd be all in on adding one of the Bosa brothers. So name a player that you think could get cut. A surprising name would be much more appreciated. And honestly, it doesn't have to be a Saints player. It could be a guy like, I don't know, who's going to get cut, Joey? Who's a player that could potentially get cut? Jair Alexander, Devontae Adams. There's a couple names. Well, how about one of those? Give me a crazy name that you think could get cut this offseason, and y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.